And we're live. Good evening. I think it's just about qualifies as evening. Kev, welcome to a Celtic State of Mind. It's a big night. It's a big game. It is game day. It is the return leg between FC Kairat and, of course, Celtic. Nothing each from the first leg, so all to play for in this game. I'm your host tonight, Chris McElwain, known as Double Denim. I'm also joined by the next in line of many Celtic alumni with magnificent beards, from Danny McGrain to Brian McClare to Joe Ledley. And now we have Kevin McCluskey. Kevin, how are you, sir?
I mean, after that intro, I don't know where I can go from that. I'm just glad that you mentioned Joe Ledley, because he is the true inspiration behind this. But no, doing well, thanks, Chris. And it's nice to get back on here. I think the last game I did was with yourself. It was the game against Cork back at the beginning of pre-season. For one reason or another, I've not been able to make a game, like a show. So it's nice to get back on. But before we get cracking on it, I will give out a couple of thank yous, if that's all right. Because one of the reasons I've not been on a Matchday show for a while is I was back in Scotland for a few weeks at the beginning of the season. And thanks to my brother and a guy called Arthur Moore, who runs the Tommy Craig Celtic Supporters Club, I was lucky enough to get a ticket for the game against St Mirren. So a big thank you and shout out to both of them, because it's been a long time since I've made it to a home game. So thanks to them. And then because I never ever done it at the time, I'm doing thank yous. I'll need to also thank also those guys again, but also a guy called Jordi Trainer and his wife Celia, because they were the ones that sorted me out for my ticket in Zagreb. So I never thanked them at the time, back in December. I've been in trouble for that ever since. So I finally remembered to do it. So thank you to them, and hopefully they'll be able to sort me out for a ticket for another Champions League game later on this season, if all goes well tonight.
I knew there was an angle. There. But no, that's good. That's good shout out, good on the guys for helping you out there. And hopefully I'll get a chance to catch up with you one of these times when you get back over. Kev, it's obviously game day today. None of us, I think, took many positives from the first leg against Kairat. We've got the lineup, which I'll bring up in a few moments. But how are you feeling going into this one? Because we went into the first leg feeling pretty confident. We were talking about potentially a big statement win, getting the job done in the first leg, so we wouldn't have the nerves that we might have tonight. Now, as is usual the Celtic way, we've done it the hard way. We've got an opportunity against Still tonight. It is nothing each, so it's basically a one-off game at this point. But are you coming into this game confident? Are you feeling a little bit of trepidation? Is it a nervy one tonight? Is it a Jim Orr behind five sofas? How are you feeling about the game tonight?
I'm not quite Jim Orr behind five sofas, although, again, when I was back over the summer, I actually got the pleasure of meeting Jim again. It was a nice chat with him, so that was lovely. But yeah, I'm not quite as bad as him in terms of hiding behind sofas at the moment, but it's more the kind of nervous trepidation that you're mentioning going into this game, because, like you say, I don't think there's any Celtic fan that's going to genuinely come away with any positives from the last game, other than we didn't lose. That was the only positive. I think if folk are trying to come up with them, they may be kidding themselves on in a way, because we were dreadful in the first game. We were so passive, we created very little, and the most kind of goal-threatening moments for most of the game came from Kairat, because we got very nervous and anxious towards the end. So I think we blew a big chance in the first game. We knew that it was never going to be a walk in the park, and I don't think anyone really expected a 4 or 5-0 win. Yeah. Although maybe some people suggested that on a pre-match show last week, out of bravado, Chris. But genuinely, I don't think many people really thought that was going to be the case. It would be a bit of a slog, but we would get a 2, or maybe, if we were lucky, a 3-0 win to take over to this game, and it makes it a lot easier. But we were dreadful. We didn't deserve anything more than what we got. So you do have a lot of nerves going into this. But then again, you look at the team and you just go, while the game isn't played on paper, we're a much better team than them. We should have enough in the locker to get through this game. It's going to be tough. There's factors that's going to come into play, such as playing at altitude. It's going to make it a very difficult match for us, could make it a bit of a slog. But we've experience in that team. We've good football players in that team. And in Maeda playing through the middle, we've got a goal threat there as well. And Negrin coming in behind him, getting his 2 goals at the weekend. So there's confidence that we can win. But we're not as confident as we probably should be if we got a better result last week.
Yeah, cautiously optimistic, I think. Well, you've mentioned some of the elements of the lineup. Let's bring it up and take a quick look. So the starting 11, I'll just run through at the moment. We've got Kasper Schmeichel in goal. We've got Tony Ralston, obviously, coming in for the injured Alistair Johnson. He'll be a big miss, and we'll discuss that. Carter Vickers and Scales, which seems to be the preferred central defensive partnership, rather. Along with Kieran Tierney, who I think is going to start the majority of games as long as we can keep him fit. I think the concern is can we get him to to complete a full 90 minutes at the moment. In that midfield, we have Callum McGregor, Rio Hatate, and Benji Nygren. I think that seems to be the first choice three for that midfield. A few people talking about possibly Nygren moving out wide to maybe accommodate a player like Bernardo or Engels coming in, but he's stuck with the tried and tested. That means that we are seeing James Forrest again from the start, along with Yang on the wings. But as a lot of people have been asking for, and what you've rightly pointed out, Kevin, we've got Dyson Maeda, and what I think, and I think a lot of people view in his best position as the striker up top. On the bench, my eyesight's pretty bad, so I'm going to use one on my phone just to run through the subs here. But on the bench, we have Sinisalo, we have Ross Doohan, we've got Simpson Pusey, we've got Adamida, who, I know he travelled. A few people were unsure as to whether he'd play a part. He could come off the bench tonight. We've got Luke McCowan, we've got Shin Yamada, again, who gave quite a good account of himself in his previous game there. Johnny Kenny, another one. So we've at least got attacking options on the bench. Kenny, I think, really good at the build-up, good at the link-up play, showed elements of that again, and got his goal, obviously, at the weekend against Livy as well. Arne Engels and Paulo Bernardo that we mentioned already. We also have Dane Murray, who's getting a lot of plaudits for his prior appearance as well. He's on the bench, and Colby Donovan, who came on to make his first appearance for the first team this season in the game against Livy. So the good thing is I think there's plenty of experience on that bench, and we've got attacking options. But looking at that starting lineup, Kev, is that the best lineup we could have went with today?
I think so, yeah. Given the players that are available and those that are out injured, I don't think I would be making any changes to that team. You're obviously going to miss Johnson from right back with him being out. But as you think, you can't play him. And Ralston's the next best option we've got there. The defence, I think, is as strong as other than missing AJ, it's as strong as it's going to be. Carter Vickers, you want him in these kind of big games, and over the last couple of seasons, he's probably missed more of these big European games than he's played in. And he has been a miss. So I think it's great to get him back in for this. Tierney's experience, I think, could be invaluable, as well as his attacking threat, because a lot of the good stuff that we've done so far this season has come down the left and come through him, hitting the byline, getting crosses in. For me, that midfield is currently the one that picks itself, rather. I'm sure we'll talk about that, because I know that there's been talk of, she said, Nygren moving out wide right and bringing Engels in, but I feel like that's the strongest midfield at the moment. And then we're so light in options up front that, I think that probably is the best day that we could have picked for this game. But, there's arguments to say that if we moved Nygren out there, I would have been just as happy if we'd started Yamada up there instead of either Forrest or Yang maybe out wide. I would have been just as happy, because the options are so light that you're kind of just going, it's almost a case of just throwing the names up, and whichever one's landing the table are the ones that's in the team. But Forrest has got loads of experience at this level. He does have a goal threat about him. You see that he's really direct still in the way that he plays. We might need somebody like him today, just to take the ball and get it up the park and get us moving. Maeda's pace and just his dogged play is always going to be a threat to anyone that we're up against. And as much as I've criticised Yang for the last 18 months to 24 months that he's been with us, he's shown flashes in the last few games, and it might only be for 5 minutes, 10 minutes max. But when he's played on the left-hand side, he's been a lot more effective than he's been in the rest of his Celtic career really up till now. So if he's coming onto a game, this is a massive chance for him to go and stake a claim, especially if, as we expect, we've got Balikwisha and maybe one other winger coming in before the end of the transfer window. So it's a massive game for him to go and prove himself as well.
As indeed. I'll just bring up a quick comment. Andrew Allen comes in to say he didn't mention Osmond on the bench. You're right, I absolutely didn't. I did say that my eyesight wasn't great and it did miss Osmond, but it actually got me thinking about, looking at that bench at the moment. We talk about the lack of options up front, and what we're actually talking about, Kev, is we're talking about the wings. Because if you look at the bench, we do have Adam, we do have Shin Yamada, we do have Osmond, and we do have Kenny. That's actually 4 strikers on the bench. So we've got attacking options. The problem is that you're playing what many of us consider the number 1 striker in Maeda, and it's just one striking position. So actually what we're lacking is the depth in those creative wide areas, which supplement the striker. So you're looking for those creators. As you've said, Balikwisha or Balifuisha, as I keep hearing people refer to him now, which I quite like, but Balikwisha is coming in. We've been linked with a couple of other players. Left back looks as though he's coming in on loan as well from Boca Juniors, which is great. It's good to see that. But ultimately, it's the guys who are in the squad tonight that we're going to have to depend on to get through what is going to run for at least 90 minutes and hopefully do the business and get us into the next stage of the Champions League. But yeah, you're right. That just the fact that we've got 4 strikers of all different kind of sizes and shapes, if you like, in terms of the way they play and their style and their stature on that bench, and yet we're going to the tried and tested with Daisen Maeda, but it just leaves you with those limited options on the. We've got James Forrest, who has been great this season, I think, but you're relying on a 34-year-old who maybe doesn't have the same, pacey, aspect of his play that he used to have. He's trying to rely a lot more on his guile, and you've got Yang, who, as you say, comes in for flashes. 5 minutes, 10 minutes there, makes an impact, then maybe sort of fades out of the game. I think he's been accused of that. I've noted that at times. But as you say, good opportunity tonight, and surely to goodness, this is a game where every one of those players has to be on it, right? If you can't get motivated for tonight, what are you going to get motivated for?
Aye, exactly. I would make a point though, on your point about having the numbers up front. We might have the numbers, we've got the quantity, but I don't think we've got the quality.
Well,
And
that's
what lets us down. We've got 4 players there. And if we're chasing a goal with 15 minutes to go, and you're looking to Ida, Kenny, Yamada, or Osmond, it is a toss-up again as to which one comes on, because none of them are like a guaranteed stick on to get you that goal. You wouldn't be overly confident, and I think that's quite damning, really, because we should have in Maeda a centre forward up there that you think will score you a goal every game, and if he's not, we should have someone on the bench that's equally as good to come on with the same kind of goal threat and confidence in him to get the goals. I don't see it at the moment with those 4. Obviously, would love to be sitting here at full time eating a massive serving of humble pie as one of them's come on and scored the winning goal that's put us through. But like I say, we've got the quantity, we need to have the quality instead. But you're also dead on about the wings. Like we lack in quality and quantity in the wings. So it's a worry. But at the same time, right, they are good enough to go and win this game. So we're not giving excuses about that if we don't. Those players are good enough to do it. And like you said, if they can't do it tonight, when can they? This is a £40 million game for the club, which is massive in itself. But put that aside, put the money aside. This is a chance for these guys to go and play Champions League football again. And apparently that's the reason why they're all at Celtic, because they want to play Champions League football. It's not because they want to play Dundee 4 times a season, with the greatest of respect to Dundee. It's because they want to go and challenge themselves against Dortmund, against Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, AC Milan, whoever. They want to go and play against the big teams and the big games. And tonight's the only chance this season to go and make that happen. Because if we drop down into the Europa League, we'll get some decent teams, we'll get some decent games, but it's not the same prestige. And we want to be at the top table in the Elite League. So this is the night when they've got to prove and show that they're worthy of being there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. I think we always look at these games where you're looking at players who are maybe been fringe players or haven't quite stepped up. This is where you're looking for them to prove that they belong at the club, prove that they can come in and make a meaningful impact. And I think you're right. Players like Yang, getting the nod for the start. Some might say it's by default because the manager, as he's himself pointed out, he's no one else to go in there. But if I was a player, I'd be like, okay, challenge accepted. Let's go and prove we can do. So and listen, we've
the boy that's going to be playing behind him, he got his chance by default about 10 Also,
did
years
indeed.
ago, Kieran Tierney he was fourth choice left back.
He was.
He got in because Azagiri was suspended. The next boy was injured. The next boy in line was out on loan at Inverness Cali Thistle. He was fourth choice left back. And
Yep.
look at
What happens.
the career he's had. So you can get him by default. Doesn't matter how you get in. You then prove that you're worthy of keeping that jersey.
Absolutely. And listen, there's been a lot of negativity around the club, recruitment. We've all been frustrated. We, there was a lot of anger post-match. I was part of that with me and Paul John on there. We directed a lot of our ire at the board, feeling that the manager hadn't been backed. But the point you make, I think, is quite an important one. On paper, we'd have looked at the team and we'd have thought, okay, we'd like more recruits, but there's enough to get the job done there in that last leg. Obviously, we've got one more opportunity tonight. We need to make it stick. We need to make it, make tonight a memorable night for all the right reasons. And there is a case of, and I've got to call out the fans who've travelled over to, what is essentially the border of China, I think, that the location of the games we played at tonight. So it's a huge effort for fans to get over there and support the team. And there's a lot of people, on the channel, a lot of people watching. We're all going to get behind the team. The team's going to need the support tonight. I think the players are going to need to know that they're back tonight. The manager needs the backing. Is there a case of, how am I trying to term this? And we'll talk about the lineup a little bit more before the start of the game. But is there a case of it's a last chance saloon for some of these players as well? Because you mentioned that there are incomings, so Balikwisha or Ballyfisha, I'll just say that, it's easier. Balikwisha is coming in. We've got a left back coming in to back up Kieran Tierney. Potentially 2, maybe 3 more signings coming in for that. One winger, maybe a striker. It's difficult to know, a lot of speculation. But if you're a player within this squad, somebody like Yang, who the manager said, look, I'd like to let him go, but I can't. Marco Tilio's already away, so, you trust the manager's judgment on that. But you're looking at guys like Osmond, you're looking at guys like McCowan, you're looking at, Engels, who's obviously, lost his starting position to Nygren. Are you looking at this game and thinking, God, this is an opportunity for me to come in and actually show that no matter who the manager brings in, I can still come in and do a job here?
They have to think of it that way, yeah. If you want to be an elite level football player, you've got to welcome all the competition that comes your way, and that's competition in who you will play against. You've got to rise to the challenge of the opposition in every game, and then you've got to rise to the challenge of who you're playing against in training and who you're competing against there for the jersey. So yeah, professionally, I think somebody like Engels, to use him as the example, he's come in as the £11 million club record signing. He's not getting a free ride at the club. He's not playing just because he is the record signing. So I think he's got to welcome that challenge, embrace it, and if he doesn't, he's got no future at Celtic, because you've got to embrace that kind of thing. You've got to welcome challenge. It's the only way you'll improve as a player. It would show a kind of weak mentality if you're not prepared to do it. Now, I think Engels is willing to do it, and I was just using him as an example there.
Yep.
But yeah, definitely as a professional, you've got to look at this as an opportunity for you to go and take your club into the Champions League, take your club into the level that you want to be playing at. And if someone else is going to be signed in your position, then you have to raise your game to make sure that you keep your jersey, so that you play in the games that you've just got us into. I think it's a massive incentive for everyone.
Absolutely, yeah, I think so. I think, as a player, you want to be showcasing your skills on the biggest stage, which is the Champions League. So we've got to get through this. I'll bring in some of the comments here. So River C comes in. I can't believe Hatate, Forrest and Nygren are starting again. What the hell is Rodgers doing? Hatate ruined all of our attacks last week by running into Nygren and Forrest for fudge's sake. I think, it was something that was noticed. There was a little bit of miscommunication, it seemed, by Nygren and Hatate in that first leg. I noticed that on occasion, either they weren't reading each other's passes or they were getting in each other's way. I think you can maybe excuse that with the length of time that Nygren's been at the club. He's still trying to find his chemistry with his teammates, as it were. But yeah, you're hoping that each time they play Riversea that they actually get that, the communication, the on-field telepathy, you sometimes term it as, will eventually come. So fingers crossed that'll be the case. Franny Belden, welcome to the channel, mate. We've got this one on the hoops. I certainly hope so. And the Slabbering Cabbage comes in to say, hail, hail, champs. Don't know if I want to watch this game. Okay. I didn't read that all before I brought that up. People go and occupy himself. Cabbage, that's can't believe you did that to me. That's shocking. That's shocking. I really do need to get reading.
I can't believe you fell for that one.
I know. That's terrible. That's terrible. That's all in good fun, I suppose. Paddy Lavery, good to see you, mate. If we lose, it's all Jerry Taylor's fault. That's more like it. Yes, absolutely.
That's a point we can all get on board with.
We can.
Everything is Jerry Taylor's fault.
Jerry will be back on the show very soon. He's just the busiest man in showbiz at the moment, and everything's going great for him, which is good. But he's active on the chat, so he's not away from Acsom, and hopefully we'll get him back on very soon. I do like this. This is the kind of optimism we need, Kev, and this comes in from Gary Madden. Welcome to the channel. By Sunday evening, we'll be in Champions League proper and 9 points clear of Rangers with Ibrox out of the way. How about that? Who among us would not take that? So that would be outstanding. Kev, let's start talking a little bit about some of the permutations in the lineup at the moment. Obviously, we're forced into making the change at right back with Tony Ralston come in. He's one of these guys that's just he's always there, and I think he always puts a shift in. I think he actually doesn't get enough credit for some of the elements of his game, like his crossing ability and his ability to overlap. He is Paul John's favourite player, as he constantly reminds us, and they were talking up his ability on the show this afternoon. But what I like about Ralston is he does the dirty work as well. He doesn't mind getting stuck in. He kind of puts himself in there, and he's never someone that's in the headlines for the wrong reasons. You never see Ralston. Again, I don't think he's a player that ever has a horrendous game, even when he's not spectacular, but he's solid, isn't he? And you kind of need players with that mentality tonight. I think a lot of what we need tonight is the mental aspect of the game, the mental resilience, the ability to handle whatever's thrown at him tonight. Might be a physical game. We know the pitch is not necessarily in the state that we want. And you've already mentioned the altitude. So you want these kind of guys who'll die for the jersey a little bit. And Tony Ralston kind of embodies that, doesn't he?
Absolutely, yeah. He's... I think I've said it before. I need to watch how I say it. He's this team's version of Tommy Burns in that way that he's the fan in the jersey. He's like me and you, but he's just lucky enough to be on the pitch playing. He'd run through a brick wall for Celtic. Again, the Roy Aitken type of player that way. I'm not going to compare him in terms of ability to them, but in terms of that kind of mentality, what he would give to the club. And he'd die on the pitch for Celtic if someone asked him to. He'd give his last breath for us, I think. And there's times when you absolutely need that, because it's great having really good football players and boys that can pull a rabbit out of a hat. It's equally as good to have somebody that will put in a last ditch tackle that when he gets the ball, he's just going to do the simple thing with it, which is it's a safe thing, but it's the right thing. He's not going to risk anything. And if you go back to, I think it's in Angie's first season, the 97th minute up in Dingwall, who's the boy pushing everyone out the way to win the head out the corner and score the goal that wins the game? Yep. It's Tony Ralston. He brings something to us because he's a local boy, because he's a fan. He brings something that very few other players in that team give us. Not the most gifted player, but sometimes you need that, just a workman in there that gives you a kind of solid 6, 7 out of 10 performance every time he's on the park. Will very rarely let you down. I hope we're not bigging him up too much and he's going to chuck one away tonight. But
curse of the commentator.
I know commentators curse there, so I'll try to break that straight away. But Ralston's a good player. He's never going to be a world beater. I don't think he's ever going to be the first choice right back, unless we have injuries or suspensions. But he's a good player to have in the squad. And in a game like today, you got no fear about having him in there.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I completely agree with that. On the other side, we've got the returning hero, Kieran Tierney. How impressed have you been with him since he returned? I know there's been a bit of scrutiny about his fitness level and whether or not he can finish games. I kind of look at it as pretty good management, albeit I think we need a decent backup to him. But he's really come in and I think he looks a better player than when he left. To be fair, in terms of what he's bringing, he looks like he's contributing every single game. What have you made of him, Kev?
Yeah, I've been really impressed by Tierney. Again, I was a big fan of Kieran Tierney when he was here the first time. I really wanted him to do well when he went down to England. I know some folk find it difficult when he left because, again, the local boy, the Celtic man, how could he possibly leave? But he had ambitions to go and chase something somewhere else. I think we're really fortunate to have got him back when he's still 27 years of age. So he's kind of coming into the prime of his career. I agree. I think he's come back a better player than when he left. He's a more rounded player now. I think he's got a bit more to his game. He's definitely got more experience. But the thing that I've probably been most impressed with is the fact that I think he played something like 4 games in a row, which he hadn't done for many a season. And he's done that because Rodgers has managed his minutes in the park. We might not get a full 90 minutes out of Kieran Tierney, maybe not all season, maybe not for the first half of the season, but we will manage his minutes. We'll get him involved in, I think, as many games as we possibly can. There'll be domestic games when we can afford to rest them, hopefully for a big European game that comes up in the midweek. But he's definitely a player that offers so much, like defensively very solid and sound, and he's got that threat going forward. As I said before, I think in the first 2-3 games of the season, most of our good work was coming down the left, and it was from our left back. It was him hitting the byline, it's him crossing it in. He set up the goal for Nygren up at Pataudry.
Yes.
And he's looked a real threat going forward, as well as being defensively sound. So it's great to have him back, and kind of the leadership qualities that he brings as well can't be underestimated, because that's a major part. And we'll need him. So Ralston on the other side, he'll get everything for the club, and he will be kind of wholehearted in everything he does. But what Tierney brings on the other side, I think, kind of balances that, because as much as he will also give everything, he's got the experience to maybe calm Liam Scales down, to maybe even talk Carter Vickers through this game a wee bit, because he doesn't play in the big European games very often. So I think he's the whole package as a fullback, and really impressed with what he's done when he's come back. Hopefully, by the time he goes off today after 60 or 70 minutes, we are confident about securing the win.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see the teams are on the park now, so we will wrap this up shortly. I'll get Kevin's prediction in a second. I'll just bring up some of your comments. Mikey boy, good man. Let's do this, boys and girls. Yeah, absolutely. Ian Corbett comes in to say, come on the hoops, let's do this. Yeah, I'm loving it. I'm starting to see the support. Cabbage, this one I'll bring up. I'll give you a yellow card for your earlier comment, but this one, come on, you boys in green, is all good. And yeah, I think, that there are a few comments, people saying no excuses, we really need to get this done. I think to an extent that's fair. What we shouldn't do is disrespect this Kairat team. They did show at Celtic Park that they're going to be a tough opposition, on any given night, and hopefully tonight we've just got enough about us to get past. Kev, we are just about at time, so I'm going to ask you for your prediction on the night, and be careful, because some people don't like us to go too far one way or another. But at the end of the day, it's just an opinion. There's nothing wrong with confidence. But how are you viewing the game tonight?
I'm going to go very pragmatic in this one. I think it will be a tight game, because that's the vibe I got from the first leg, and it will be difficult over there. Conditions won't favour us. So I'm going to go for a narrow Celtic win, a 1-goal win, 1-0, 2-1, something like that. I think we've got enough in it to go through.
Well, I'm certainly not going to go for 5-0 tonight. Even
You're going for 6 this time?
Yeah, I'll go for 6 tonight. No, I agree with you. I think this could be a tight one tonight. I think it is going to be all about how we react to the conditions and how we face up to the adversity tonight. I think the manager and a lot of these players have shown they can do that in the past. So, well, I think it'll be tight. I do think we'll win, and I hope we do get a few goals in the process. But I'll at the same time, I would take a 90th minute winner just to get us through. Would be enough on the night. So, fingers crossed. Anyway, thank you very much. Over 1,000 strong on the live stream. We will be back at half time, hopefully talking about a strong performance, but we'll be with you throughout the night in any case. All that's left for me to say is thank you, Kevin, for coming on and joining me tonight for the pre-match. We'll see you at half time, and thank you everyone for tuning in to A Celtic State of Mind. Hail, hail, one hoops.
Nice one. Cheers, Chris. Thank you.